All right, I'm here with Cody, project manager, install manager extraordinaire with AM Solar. And this week we are working on a game changer, Pro Series ATC giant fifth wheel toy hauler that basically fills our installation bay. It was dropped off by Bish's RV in Junction City, Oregon here last Friday, and we are working hard on it. So Cody, what does the customer want when they came here? What was their goal? What are they trying to have us accomplish for them?
My understanding is that this is their final RV. They're a former customer of ours, so they've got a lot of RV experience, and this is their last one, as they say. So they're hoping to get a pretty good system upgrade.
I love it when repeat customers come to us. Our goal as a business is to do work that they look at and they're like, this is amazing. I want to tell all my friends about it. I want to come back in 5 years, and a lot of them do. So Cody, when we bring a rig in like this, what are some of the first things we do to prepare the rig for an installation?
Good question. So obviously fit it in the shop well, where we still got some good walk space. We get it stabilized, leveled out. We go through and do a lockout, tag out to make sure everything is safe to be worked on. And then we start to investigate our wire routing, determine where monitors are going, where AC and DC cables are going to be routed, both the inverter system and DC systems. And then we get to work, pulling wires and starting our plan for mounting all the hardware.
Can you give us a rundown of all the equipment that's going in here and where you think it might go at this stage?
Absolutely. This customer is going to be getting an upgrade to their battery system. We're going to be putting in a BMV-712 Battery Monitor. We're going to be upgrading their factory battery bank with 4 Lifeline L16s. So that'll give them 800 amp hours of battery capacity. So
it's an AGM battery bank?
It's an AGM battery system.
Okay.
We are also going to be doing 1140 watts of solar on a 100 amp MPPT solar charge controller. So they'll have a little bit of room for expansion in the future if they desire. They're also getting a Victron MultiPlus II, and we're going to configure it in full pass-through of their 50 amp AC distribution system. We're going to add a Watchdog for protection. They've already got a couple of micro air easy starts, and they've upgraded to a touch 70 monitoring system.
Great, and we're using the MultiPlus II rather than a MultiPlus because this big rig has a 50 amp AC panel.
Yes, sir.
And most of the hardware is going in here where Alden is checking wire routes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is everything where it's supposed to be in there, Alden? Not yet?
Not yet, but it will be.
Right on. This rig is very spacious inside. Cody, can you tell me what's going on with that panel there? What are we planning to do here?
Yeah, you bet. We're going to be installing the touch 70 monitoring system. Most likely right here. We'll reposition this. This is obviously factory chase for a lot of wiring. Presents a nice chase for us and our HDMI extension cable, and then 18.2 for power for the touch 70. So this is going to be our monitoring wall.
And you say we're keeping the progressive dynamics device. That's because, why isn't that being replaced?
That's another good question. Most of the time this would be replaced. This customer requested keeping their inverter to power their fridge. So we're going to keep that system going independent of our system. Our system will power everything else.
So there's a factory system that's capable of supplying power to the fridge. They want to not touch that. Our system will do all the big stuff.
You got it.
What is this panel and why is that open?
Good question. That is the factory AC and DC distribution panel. We open that up for a multitude of reasons, but in this case, we're investigating wire routing. That's how we found our solar wire routing. With the AC side of the system, you've got 2 options with the MP2, the MultiPlus II, to wire in full configuration. You can either run your input and output from the panel itself, or in this case, the path of least resistance is actually to come from the factory transfer switch, where the generator and shore power combine. So we're not going to be running any AC wiring from here, which is nice because this is a bit of a challenging route for big 6.4 wiring. We're going to be routing the 6.4 from the bay where the transfer switch is at.
All right. And when I open this up and I see the two 50s here, 250 amp breakers, that's what tells me that this system needs a MultiPlus II, not a MultiPlus.
Correct.
A lot of open space on the roof. This is original factory panel. That is where we're going to install our combiner box, and we'll be mounting panels all over. All right, we're checking in on the progress of this big fifth wheel. The customer had some unique requests from us. They have a need to have the refrigerator just work perfectly all the time because they're storing some medication in it basically, and they wanted to have the system divided into two parts: a factory system to run the refrigerator and our system to run everything else. Based on what we know, we would put our faith in our system, just have one system, a very robust system that'll run everything. But this is about peace of mind, and we want the customer to feel comfortable when they're running this. So Cody, what are we doing as a solution for them to get them what they want, plus merge that with what we can do?
Yeah, good question. Their factory system had a couple of GPL 4CT Lifeline batteries and a single 200 watt panel on a PWM. It's easy to dedicate the fridge to that, but the fridge is going to consume more power than that system can keep up with.
So this is more power than the solar panel can generate.
Exactly. So we are, per the customer's request, upgrading the batteries to 2L16, so almost doubling their usable capacity. And then we're putting on a 400 watt solar system with a charge controller that can handle twice that if needed. We are reusing the pre-wire, so it's 8 gauge. We're going to series configure so we have no voltage drop issues, or minimal voltage drop issues. And then we've got a dedicated battery monitor system for that bank as well, so the customer can keep an eye on things. And ultimately the fridge is going to be the only load on that battery, but in the event that battery system is not doing well, we're putting in a switch that allows the customer to transfer the fridge's DC load over the primary battery system as an emergency backup.
Okay, great. So some of the components we're looking at in here are the solar charge controller. That's the biggest one that Victron offers. You've got the Cerbo, which is like the brain for all the monitoring and data collection. Your controls, your breakers, your on-offs. Batteries, big AGM batteries, and the MultiPlus II inverter for the dual channel 50 amp service. Up on the roof here we have 8 Zamp 190 watt solar panels. 2 are for the dedicated battery bank for the refrigerator, and the other 6 are for the main system. The unique thing about these Zamp 190 watt panels is they're made out of 2 95 watt panels connected in parallel in the same frame, which is nice for partial shading when you're right next to an air conditioner. The shade will shut off one of the 95 watt panels but keep the other 95 watt going.
All right, so we've completed this project here for our customer. You can see inside here we've got an upgraded factory battery system with a dedicated solar charge controller. We got 2 190 watt panels up on the roof with a little bit of room for expansion if needed. This is the solar panel on-off switch. This is the MPPT charge controller on-off to the batteries. And then above that is a toggle switch. On this battery bank there's an individual DC load, and it's the fridge. This customer really want to make sure that their fridge is powered at all times. Worst case scenario, if this system isn't keeping up, they flip that toggle switch and the DC load will transfer over to their main primary battery system, and that way they can rest assured they've always got power to their fridge at any time.
So this is pretty rare. I don't think we've ever done a dual system on a RV.
not very
But
common.
first time for everything. It's what the customer wanted, so we're gonna make it happen.
Yes, sir. So here is the primary system with twice the battery capacity. We've got 4 GPL L16s in series parallel configuration. So he's got a total of 400 amp hours usable, 800 amp hour battery bank. We've got a much larger charge controller here, 100 amp MPPT. There's 6 190 watt panels on the roof leading to this. Room for a couple more if he needs. We've got the newest MP2 inverter charger mounted on the rooftop there. We've got a myriad of switches here, obviously doing different things. One's for the solar, one's for house loads. We've got a master on-off that'll kill all the power. We've got an inverter on-off that'll isolate the inverter if needed. And then we've got the Cerbo right above the solar charge controller, which is the brain of the central monitoring system. And the Touch 50 monitor is inside. We can showcase that here. So this customer actually upgraded from the Touch 50 to the Touch 70, bigger screen. This is an overview of current conditions here. The inverter's on. We're running a pretty light load here. Your batteries are 92% full. We're inside the shop still, so we don't have any solar action going on. But one of the most common things that customers will do from the Touch 50 is they'll control their inverter system. So if you just touch the main screen, go to menu, it's going to give you a device list. And in that device list is the MultiPlus II. This is where a customer would regularly change the state of the inverter. Whether they need it to be on all the time, maybe inverter only, charger only, or off, different reasons for those settings. But primarily we just leave the inverter on, that way it enables all the functions that the inverter has to offer in the way of pass-through and load assist. Another common adjustment would be the input current limit. This rig is a 50 amp AC configuration, but people regularly plug into 30 or maybe 20 or 15, and when doing so, they need to come in here and adjust the current limiter to match whatever they're plugged into. That'll enable the MultiPlus's load assist capability. If they exceed what the shore power brings them, the inverter will make up the difference from the batteries, up to a 1-to-1 ratio, or in this case, a maximum of 20 amps. If you were to look at the device list again, you're going to see something that's a little unusual for our systems. There's 2 different battery systems. We talked about that earlier. What's cool is that the Touch can see both those battery systems, give you an overview of state of charge, voltage, any sort of load actively on at the moment. There's also 2 solar systems, but we only have one on the monitoring system. The reason for that is because this Cerbo combo allows a feature called DVCC. That's basically the prioritization of power to the battery. So if you're plugged in to shore power and you want the solar to be the primary charging source, DVCC is going to enable that as needed. By putting 2 different solar systems in here, it would transfer that DVCC to both battery banks, and we can't actually do that because of conditions might vary. One battery might actually get charged, overly charged in that scenario, depending on how the other battery is doing. So in this case, we've got that isolated secondary solar system, but the brunt of important information, which is what the batteries are doing, is there for the customer to view on the main Touch 70 screen. All right, so sometimes customers will have us do special things for them. In this case, this customer has a winch. He wanted this winch to be in his garage space. The trick is that the batteries are a long ways away. So we routed some cabling, some duplex 2 gauge, came up just behind the wheel well, into a nice Anderson connector, and then we built him a custom harness extension for his winch, and that'll allow him to put the winch back here and operate whenever he needs it.